Welcome in to what the fuck is this?
I think it's
11?
episode 11. Yeah,
Episode
we've
11.
reached a milestone. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm here we're talking about spreadsheets and I don't even know what episode we're at. For those of you guys joining us, this is another episode of Short Legs Big Rage. Above me here is longtime friend, family, and possibly brother. I think we're close enough at this point. Joey
Fucking
Shadows.
of course. Of course,
Uh,
brother. Yeah.
So today, we're going to actually talk about something Dan wants to talk about, which is getting me pretty excited because Joe didn't even see this coming. We're talking sports games today because Dan didn't play a whole lot of games growing up, but what he did play was a lot of Madden. So we are going to talk sports games. I am going to handle the NFL and racing kind of category from everything from the realistic to the chaos. And we're going to try to cap it off at Xbox because this at a certain point, once we got into the Xbox 360, the Nintendo Wii, sports games just took a fucking different path. So we're gonna talk about it when they were fun and it was just chaos.
Yeah,
Um,
dude.
Joe, what did I tell you were doing? You're doing hockey and
I'm doing hockey and wrestling.
that's right. So
Yeah.
tell you
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
Joe, just because I got a lot of shit to talk about,
Okay.
why don't we start with you?
Okay.
Um,
How do you want to do this? Do you want to do like one and then one, or I do like my two hockeys
you
and then
you
you do
go
your
and then I'll
twos and then
go. We
okay.
can do that.
Okay.
So, this
Okay.
is we've never really prepared a podcast episode. For those of you watching, this is the meeting.
This is
Uh
it.
yep,
This is it. Yeah,
yep.
it's
That's
live. We're doing
pretty
it
much,
live.
let's get a round of applause going. We'll get her started. Let's all have a good day. Let's get some numbers on the board. But yeah, because when we grew up, um Joey and his brother Timmy Mac, they basically monopolized the NHL market. If you played video games at their house, which we all did because our parents wouldn't buy that shit for us,
Mm-hmm.
we played NHL. And NHL, if we're talking about it from and I know we're going to talk about it from the days of Slapshot, Stanley Cup, all of the old classics. Like, and we're not even talking about the NHL. The way that the NHL games developed when you could start your franchises, everything like that, just changed the world as to what we knew. But when I was at these motherfuckers' houses, they refused, and I mean refused, to play football games because that was if they played hockey, they'd beat me 12-1.
Fuck
And
yeah.
that one was usually just a fluke of a fluke. They might have even scored their own goal. That was a very high likelihood. It might have been 13-0, but 12-1 on paper. But that
Dude, I
means
could I could never understand football games. Like never. Unless it was like and you might bring it up, but unless it was like those arcadey type games,
oh yeah, we're gonna talk
man,
arcade games.
I don't understand plays. I don't like I knew shotgun was my quarterback was gonna throw, and that's all I knew. Did I know defense? I knew blitz was attack the quarterback. Other than that, I had no idea how to set plays. I had no like I didn't understand it at all. Positions? What are these 12 guys on the field? And I probably just said that wrong because there's probably not 12 guys on the field. So like,
I'm
yeah,
really
when you
proud
came
of
to our
you.
place, yeah, when you came to our place, it was hockey, maybe soccer, maybe.
And that was it. That
But
was one thing we left off our list, but I think I need to bring in a FIFA and aficionado because we both played it, but I think we've got friends that have probably can talk a little more into it because the
hmm
FIFA games were a lifestyle. Like those people were on their own little like fucking wavelength, and by those
hmm
people I mean the Europeans. Um, our Portuguese buddies, like that's like you talk to some nah man, new FIFA. Just
Dude,
I
yeah.
haven't heard from Helder in 13 years.
Yeah,
Um, you know,
I still know people that just play FIFA. That's only like their FIFA is COD. Like
and
they
that's
play
it.
every year.
But
They do like
that's life. But that's like my Legend of Zelda and your Final Fantasy. But we won't get back into that.
hmm
I digress. But Joe, get us going on NHL. Let's talk about hockey games. Finish, and then we'll move into wrestling because wrestling had a huge part in our just us growing up as youth, like especially with the
Oh
Super
yeah.
Nintendo. So Joe, tell me a story, bud.
Okay. All right, brother. So the first game I'm going to talk about, and I'm pretty sure we both played it because we mentioned it before, and it's probably the all-time. I'm going to say like one of the all-time greats for the Nintendo, and I'm going to say like maybe even hockey in general, is Blades of motherfucking Steel. We all remember that game. We all remember,
Well,
being
if
at
you were
Vavoo.
born in the '80s, you probably remember that game.
Yeah,
According to our demographic, there's probably gonna be 5 or 6 of them that aren't, but
yeah, man. So
that's
like,
where it
we're at
started.
we're at Vavoo's place, right? Your titties, my
Yep.
Vavoo, right? You pop that in, and you got Born from Steel,
Now
right? They had the voice acting,
now
right? They
we
had
got
the
to set the
crowd.
stage. So when we were at his grandpa's house, we're watching this on possibly the biggest 28-inch TV encased
And
in wood and velvet kind of
Brazilian
entertainment unit.
rosewood fucking
That's it.
entertainment with the
With a
speakers. Yeah.
with a Jesus bobblehead on it. Continue. Sorry to interrupt. I had to throw
Right.
that in there
No,
so
no, no problem, dude. But
everybody
yeah,
gets the feel.
yo, dude, and like again, like the first time, because again with Nintendo games there wasn't really like voices, right? So when you heard the voices, you were like, "Oh my God, this might be like a great game." So again, I'm gonna Bird Sister is exactly like how it sounded. There was terms in there that you couldn't even understand what they were saying, but you didn't care. It was just voice acting. The music, phenomenal. You felt like you were playing a hockey game because if we remember too, me like and I say we, the viewers, the listeners, and you, there was like crowd cheering, right? There was like the
With the
whistle
paper
blowing,
fans.
the paper fan, like there's
Yeah.
fans in the background. You can see them bobbing up and down. Like it might just be like a head and a body, but they're like bobbing up and down. Different. There was flash photography. You see like
Yeah.
flashes in the crowd of people like taking pictures, and like when you were playing a very basic game, right? Very basic. You had two buttons on your controller, your A and your B. So you got your pass and your shoot. And when you were defending, you had your, I guess, body check, if you could call it that. You're just ramming into each
If
other.
you got to a point where you could body check, and that was it, because it was such a, I would even call it a tertiary, benefit, that if you actually
Hmm.
lined that motherfucker up and you had half the ice to hit him and you did it
Hmm.
just at the right time, you would hit him and
Hmm.
everybody would go, oh,
Yeah, dude.
right?
So with the hitting, right? And this is when I was researching it because as kids we didn't understand how. And the biggest thing about this game was the fighting. Okay. Now, sorry, let me backtrack. I'm getting fucking
That's
excited
fine.
because I watched a video of
It's worth getting
I watched
excited
a
about.
video of this and I was like, oh my God, I remember this so bad. So, Blaze of Steel, later released in Japan as Konamic Ice Hockey, is an ice hockey video game released by Konami. So, again, a Japanese company. This was back in the day when anybody could make a sports game. Like, there wasn't EA didn't control the sports market. It wasn't like anybody, if you wanted to make a hockey game, make a hockey game. You wanted to make a soccer game, make a soccer game. Now, most of the time you didn't have player names in it, and if you did they were probably made up until like the
Late
NHL
90s.
90
Yeah.
whatever games, right? The NHL 91, 92, 93, when the EA again started to take
When it
over.
was
But
actually with the trademark. And I think that's one
yes.
important thing to bring up is, and I thought about this just as we were talking to, and I'm sorry for interrupting you again,
No, no,
but
go for it, dude.
we got to remember where all of this stuff originated, right? When they were making games, we talked about this. It was for the Japan and Asian markets.
Mm-hmm.
NHL, they didn't give a fuck about that shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we saw that, like, and it was more of a superstar game than it
Yes.
was a league game. But that being said, I thought about that because this is why we had our Blades of Steel and all the others. It
Mm-hmm.
was never like it. We didn't play NHL '89. You know what I mean? Like it was
No,
some
we
kind of
played
knockoff,
like
like you said.
there was even a game just called ice hockey,
Yeah,
like on the Nintendo. It was just ice hockey, and it was just a
that's how
hockey
much
game.
they cared about
Right?
it.
Yeah, yeah, right. A soccer game might be called Super Soccer,
Yeah,
right? Like it wasn't like.
and the golfers even had like just like a superstar name, like so and
Mhm.
so's. It wasn't like John Daly's like perfect putt, but it was something along those lines. And
Yeah,
sorry, Joe, but
exactly, exactly. No, 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 no.
yeah,
So originally, and I didn't know this. Originally, it was an arcade game, and it got ported to Nintendo.
okay.
I watched a video of the arcade game. Dude, the arcade game looks really good. Like very detailed, like it looked very like the sprites were huge, obviously, because it was an arcade game. Like a little bit more complication when it comes to playing, right? But they ported it to the Famicom and the NES in 1988. Um, all the teams are fictional, but they are based on real Canadian and North American teams. Um, so it's one player or two player, not much modes. I think you have exhibition mode and you have tournament,
Yeah.
right? So your tournament, you play in a seed of whatever, you play all the teams, you win the cup or whatever they call it, right? So I had three difficulties: junior, college, pro. Pro being the most difficult and junior being the easiest. And each team had three forwards, two defensemen, and a goalie. So basic hockey, right? Um, so out of these teams, there was eight of them. You had Toronto, and it wasn't like the Toronto Maple Leafs. It was
No.
just you had Toronto, you
Toronto
had
Beaver Smashers. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
some
you had
weird ass fucking name.
Vancouver, right? Montreal, Edmonton, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Minnesota. Now, which was awesome about this game, like you basically picked whatever color you wanted to be, right? Because you picked Toronto, you were all blue. Your face might be light blue and your jersey is dark blue, right? Vancouver, I can't remember the color, like Montreal, Edmonton, New York, like Los Angeles or Minnesota, I think was purple. Right, so you had your colors. Chicago, I think Chicago had two colors. It was like your face and your arms and stuff were red and your helmet was black and your
Yeah, and then you
jersey
had
was
like
like
the
black, like
Hartford Whalers colors.
yeah,
All
yeah.
like
So
off seafoam greens.
and like you couldn't go and change and sub and whatever, like your players were just your players. um but the big and apparently there was two sequels to this game that I didn't know about. NHL Blades of Steel 99 and Blades of Steel 2000.
Oh, they actually
um
went to 2000. Shit.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So, and then the NES version was released on the Nintendo Virtual Console in 2007, and an arcade version was re-released on Microsoft's Game Room in 2010. I think the Blades of Steel 99 and 2000 were probably like PlayStation and like 64 versions or something. I didn't really look too much into them because I never played them. But the biggest thing about this game was the fighting, because that's what everybody back then, it was about being a brute force and like a fighter, and that's why people watched it. We all watched Don Cherry's Biggest Hits
Yeah, like
1997 or
this is
whatever.
back
Like,
when sports were sports and
mm-hmm,
chaos.
mm-hmm,
That is what
mm-hmm,
people wanted to see.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So fighting in the game is initiated when, and this is when I was saying we didn't know when we would start a fight. We just would just hit each other, right? But this is how it worked. When two players bumped into each other three times in a row without hitting another player, right?
Oh
The two
yeah,
players would you would just keep hitting each other like
the
this until a
magnet
fight
effect. Yeah,
started, right? Yeah. And then yeah, so they would engage in a pre-fight confrontation. So it wouldn't zoom in. It would be like the ice, the one view, and you would start pounding the button and fighting each other. Now you could get the fight over with quick if you're quick enough on the button, and then like nothing would happen. If you weren't quick enough, then it went into like that 1v1. Ah, you fucking, I turned you off, you piece of shit.
there's always got to
Gonna
be
do that
one
again.
motherfucker.
Is yeah, I know I silenced you, you fuck. uh, um, yeah, so you could get it over quick enough, and then like the player would just lay on the ground for a bit and then get back up. But if you didn't, you went into like a 1v1 kind of like fighting, almost let's call it like Street Fighter view, but like whatever. And then you could either block high or low, or you could punch high or low. And you had a health bar. I think there you had to hit them 5 times, right? So that was the biggest thing. I remember that's all we wanted to do. We didn't give a shit because scoring was hard in
Yeah,
that game. Like especially against a computer, like it was really hard. Against like you playing with somebody else, like once you figure it out, I guess, because I think the way that it worked is you also controlled the direction of the goalie once it was in the defensive end. So not only are you moving your character around, but your goalie isn't being controlled by a computer at that point. It's being controlled by you.
yeah.
So you have to pay attention which way you're moving, so you're paying attention to your goalie, right? Um, so what would happen is you get into that fight, you block, you whatever, you knock down the player. Now, how this game differs from actual hockey, amongst the many other things, was is that when you lost, the loser has the penalty. The winner, there's no consequence for the winner. The winner continues going and plays. The loser goes into the penalty box for whatever. I can't remember how it is because you could change the time. Like the time wasn't the time. Like it was very quick,
A lot of
right?
those games
So
had that. Like you could set it to like a 10-minute game, 5-minute game, or 20-minute
five
game.
minute, 3 minute game,
Yeah.
20 minute game, right? So I think this one was like 3 minutes. So like it wasn't like you were in the box for 2 minutes, right? So yeah, you could punch high, low, whatever, hit them 5 times. The loser goes to the penalty, creating the power play, 5 on 4. And now here's the other difference. Up to 4 players can be penalized for a maximum of 5-on-1 advantage.
I don't remember that, but that's awesome.
I don't think we ever got to that point, but you could play a 5-on-1 advantage in the game, right? If a fight occurs close to one of the nets, the referee may break up the fight and call a penalty shot instead. Now, the penalty shot was more like a soccer penalty shot, where you were stationary and you just picked a spot and you shot the puck, right? Um, and that's all. Like honestly, there's not much more to it. There's a pass, a shoot button, and the
Well,
hitting, I don't think you even press a button to hit. You just had to ram into them. Like,
well, and that was it. And like I said, like this is very caveman-y. Like if we're talking about it, like when we talked about Final Fantasy and the rest of the games that were developed, that was their goal. I think that a lot of these sports games, other than baseball, were pretty much just there for the American market to try to bring them on. But like you said, we were using knockoff teams. They didn't have that NHL branding, um, which eventually took over. But even when you're
mhm,
talking about it, like just as elaborate as the games are today, it wasn't like that back then. Like you said, you were on an AB controller with ups and downs, and if you had a cheat code, it was generally inputted into the name. It wasn't so much like, and I'll talk about it in football, where if you name your
mhm.
team this, certain things would happen. And I think that's one thing that we saw evolve, and that's kind of why I wanted to clip it at the Xbox, because what you're about to get into, and I'm sure that I know you're going to touch with it, was we got to a point where it became uber realistic.
Yeah, simulation. It wasn't arcadey anymore. It was just a simulation game, right?
And that was it. Like you said,
Hmm.
you could have called the thing ice hockey, and that
Hmm.
was your game. Like it was never intended to be a team thing, but it brought us into the new age because this is the time before EA Sports. Now we'll
Yes.
slowly get into it, but Joe, keep going on with hockey and
Okay.
wrestling here.
So that was at the what was the other thing? Oh, the other thing cool about this game, and I realized it when I was watching like a little there's like a 9 minute video on it, is during the intermission, there a mini game would pop up. And it would be it was almost like I don't know if you remember the game Gradius, you're like a spaceship and you're
Yeah, yeah,
fighting
yeah, yeah.
it was side scroller and you're fighting like aliens and shit like that. You get power-ups or whatever. So you did a little mini game like that. And then they would mark it because it was Konami. They would be like, "Oh yeah, and just to let you know, Contra's coming out or this is
Yeah.
coming out." Like they would have that like in the fucking game, which is crazy. Like it's very smart at that time. Like they were promoting their other games within
The
their game,
game.
but it would be like you're in intermission watching the screen with like whatever they would do in the promos and stuff that they knew now, right? So I thought that that was like actually pretty neat, and I don't remember that at all,
I
to
don't
be
either.
honest with you. Yeah, yeah,
Definitely
I
could have
just
happened
remember
though.
yeah, I just remember getting into fights and barely scoring goals. That's all I. But it's such a it's just such a core memory. Like when you go back and you watch it, like it was actually a really good game for its time. They had the sound effects of the skates scraping on the
Yeah.
ice, the puck, the slap shots, the passing, right? So like
But
for
like,
first time, they put some money into it. That's for
well,
sure.
and that's it. And when we were talking about the voice acting, it's basically like the most generic sound clips, like from a
Mm-hmm.
hockey game that you can think of. Oh, what a goal! Like
Mm-hmm.
just stuff
Yep.
like that. But that was all we wanted back then. Now, when we're going to go through the evolution, we talk about the way we're going to talk about the way that being able to create your player just changed the
Oh yeah.
game. And that's when we
Career
start getting,
mode, all that stuff,
and
right?
that's what we're going to get into. So, for those of you
Yeah.
watching who weren't born in the 80s, there was a time. where we just had fun playing random shit. It didn't
Just
need to
fun.
be, that's it. You tried to 99 out your person back then, just like you did now. But Joe, keep
Hmm.
going on with the
Okay.
evolution of hockey here.
So we agreed for two. So it was tough because there was a lot of hockey games I played growing up and a lot of memorable ones, honorable mentions, NHL Stanley Cup. We all remember that game, I think,
Yep.
hopefully. But you might remember it on the Super
Yeah, you shot
Nintendo,
it
right?
from
So honorable
halfway,
mention.
you just skipped it
Yeah,
up, and you
dude,
scored
the
every time.
glitch, you just flicked it, press the X, flick it, and you score every time, right? So that game kind of became unfun unless you made the rule of you can't fucking flick it, dude. Like, don't fucking do that. Like, don't be that guy that picks fucking Odd Job in GoldenEye. Like, let's not do this shit, right? So honorable mentions with that. On another honorable mention, Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey on the 64. Got to give that a shout out because spent many times, many Stanley Cup championships playing that game. But the game I'm going to mention that I think is another, I wouldn't call it a hidden gem, but I want people to remember or look into the fact, and we need to kind of bring these games back where people gave, how do you say it? They didn't go with the basic shit. They wanted to try something new. They wanted to try something fun. They wanted to try something inventive. So my next hockey game is Mutant League Hockey.
Oh, fuck. There we go.
Yeah. Mutant League Hockey, dude. Like this is back when like it was like again just to have fucking fun. You know what I mean? Like yeah, it's a sports game, but let's like let's add some new shit into it. Let's not make it a basic fucking game, right? So Mutant League Hockey is an ice hockey game that was released in '94 just for the Sega Genesis. I thought I played it on the Super Nintendo, but I guess I played it on the Genesis. Um, it is a follow up from Mutant League Football, which came out a year before. Um, but unlike Mutant League Football, which featured 5 mutant species, they narrowed it down to 3. So they narrowed it down to robots, undead skeletons, and trolls, and they removed aliens and superhumans. I don't know why they removed it. If they made it for one, why wouldn't they make it for the other? But that is fine. I don't remember Mutant League Football, but again, didn't play football games. So um, the game has the same tone as its predecessor, with special plays that can cause different things to happen, like making the puck explode when it is picked up by an opposing player, bribing the referee to call fake penalties against the other team, and putting landmines and holes into the ice that you
Yeah.
could actually fall into. And the cool thing about that is if you fall into the ice, you see the body submerged under the ice and you see the shadow going through and bumping up against the boards and it's just there the whole fucking time. Um, the teams in this game are ranked by a rating of 0 through 6 skulls. Um, so, as with Mutant Football League, I should look at this game now too. Hazards litter the ice, and the death is a commonplace. Players may substitute their goalie for a demon goalie, which is a huge demon head that takes the place of the net. Scoring on the demon goal causes it to explode. Dude, like
We
there's so
might
much
have
in
to
this
find a
game.
ROM for this one.
Dude, yeah, I watched somebody play. I think I like it was like a 20-minute video of them playing through like the season. I was kind of skipping through, but I watched most of it. Um, in addition, the crowd is prone to throwing weapons or other power-ups onto the ice. They may be
I
picked
do
up and
remember
used
that.
freely.
I do remember that.
Yes. So instead of hitting, you're punching and you're grabbing like fucking
The bat.
swinging maces and your fucking bats and axes. And when you kill the other player, their body like stays on the ice, their skull and everything stays on the ice, which now becomes an obstacle. So if you run into it, you trip and fall, and another player just takes his place. Like that's how it is, right? You could kill as many fucking players as possible, and they
Good old
just litter the
days.
ice, right?
Yeah.
When the player dies, their corpse remains on the ice and may be tripped on. Between the periods, a giant slug, like a Zamboni, comes and clears the ice. So they only stay on there for a period and then they clear the ice, right? Um, as in real hockey, fights may break out. Um, and they're done in a little mini game, kind of almost like Blades of Steel, where the objective is to knock out the opponent. Both players are still sent to the penalty box, but the player who got knocked out receives an additional like penalty. Um, the fights also just a little thing. The fights also show a fight card at the end, showing how many punches were thrown, to how many landed, and how many black eyes you received. Um, the and during the intermission, depending on how well you're doing, your coach either talks shit about you, and your team, or like about the other players. The video I was watching, I wrote down one quote, and this is how like extreme back then like games were, and they didn't really give a fuck about like they did give a fuck about ESRB ratings, but it was a different time, right? So the game I was watching, the guy won in overtime, and the coach said, "We caught them sleeping that time. The old chloroform on the bicycle seat trick always gets them." Is one of the things the coach like, and that's just one of the many things that I saw this coach quote, right? But I had to write that one down because I'm like, holy shit! Like I'm a 10-year-old boy playing this, and I'm like, what's chloroform on the seat, right? Like, but yeah. So like, it's not a hard game. There's not much more to it, but like it's like if Mario Kart was hockey. And I'm not saying Mario Kart 8 because that's a fucking wicked game, but like this game again, it's a time where they're willing to try something new. They weren't willing to like they didn't want to just put out the same goddamn bullshit year after year like we get now. Like we need looking back at this stuff, we need companies to start making kind of games like this again where you just have fun. Like it's not about booster packs and like loot boxes and this like you just
I want to use
have
a
fun.
jetpack to tackle someone. That's it. Simple
I don't
things.
like
Sharks with
like
freaking laser beams on their heads.
dude,
That's all we want.
something that just makes it like total chaos and fun. Like there's a game, and I'll give another, I guess, honorable mention doc
That's
game,
fun.
Tape to Tape.
Oh shit.
If you ever heard of it,
I
I played
remember
it on
that.
stream a couple times. Yeah, it's a roguelike hockey game where like yeah, you could like grab your stick and toss it at players. You could do this, you could do that. Like it just because there's no rules, it doesn't mean that it's not fun. You know what I mean? Like it could still be fun. It could still be kind of challenging, right? But like, I don't understand why companies like stopped with these fucking games. And you know what? I do understand because fucking EA. But anyways, they really need to come out because looking back at these games, I'm like, I had like even though the games were shit, I'll be honest with you, they're fucking shit. Looking back at them now, they were fun, and that's really all we need, right? I wrote down a bunch of teams, but I know I don't want to take over this whole thing. But some of the teams, like there was, let's see here, the Mighty Weenies. They were the spoof of the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. The Pucksucker Pukes. The Pittsburgh Penguins is who they're spoofing. Let's see here. We got the fucking Dark Star Dragons. We got the Lizard Kings, which were supposed to be the Los Angeles Kings. The Montreal Cadavers, which were
Oh
the
yeah.
Montreal Canadiens. Yeah, so like they had a bunch of teams. Now the only shitty thing again, like I said, is like there wasn't much variety when you watch the videos and stuff. Like four of the teams had the same colors, but I guess it's kind of like NHL now. You watch NHL now, and they're fucking all the teams look the goddamn same. Nobody has like uh character anymore. But yeah, the Bruiser Bots, the Boston Bruins, the Mucus Ooze, St. Louis Blues, right? So like, you know, they can still get away with games like this. I just don't know why. But yeah, that's my two fucking hockey games, dude. Um, Again, go watch videos if you can find ROMs of this shit. Just go have some fun for a bit. Like they're not like when I was watching the video with the mutant whatever, like I don't know. It was always usually a 1-0 game because it was so fucking
Yeah.
hard to score, right? But it just looked fun. Like you're just running around beating
But
the shit out of people.
but the actual sport was secondary, and that's like we'll talk a bit because boxing holds a huge pantheon here as well. But when we're talking about those old games, and you know, we can do a more realistic one with the Maddens, the F1s, and so on and so forth when
Hmm.
we get into racing. But with hockey, that was it because every sport needs a Space Jam. I'm not gonna lie, everyone needs
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
If there was a cricket game where I could bomb people, I would play the cricket game.
I'd play
Um,
it. Yeah.
and that's it. And I think that that's where that thought that dawned on me before is they didn't have the branding of the sports franchises when EA came in. That's when a lot of changes started happening. And that's when
Hmm.
we got into more of the realistic. But I think then is when, like, if you think about the money that Madden made after 2003 to present, crazy. Like I can't even play.
Crazy,
The
dude.
game is so fucking realistic. I used to play football and I can't even play the fucking video game. But
I
that's
was
it.
watching some dude play 2026 Madden, and I'm like,
Oh,
dude,
bro,
this looks like I'm watching a game on
you need to take a
TV.
class.
Like,
Well, that's it. But that's what we wanted when we were kids. We like that, and that's when NHL started getting in. Like I think the earliest one I remember was '97, and we used to sit there and
Mhm.
play '97 all the time. And that's it. That's when you had your Peter
That was on the
Forsbergs,
PlayStation.
yeah. And
Hmm.
that's when it started to hit that new because, and we talked about this in former episodes, that to us, PlayStation was the console you played sports on.
Yes.
Like it wasn't like you got Xbox for, and we'll get into like your Grand Theft Autos and stuff like that. But PlayStation was the best layout for sports games because when we started to
Hmm.
get into Madden, MLB, and like I said, there's a bunch of other ones. But even with boxing, and we didn't, Super Punch Out will always have a place on anyone's because that's really would be the definition of kind of like this episode. And what we wanted to talk about was that other side of it, what it was just chaos.
It
Like,
was chaos and fun.
and we didn't give a shit. Like, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, you talk some shit, but if you had, 20 kids sleeping in the basement after a hockey tournament or some shit, you could put on Royal Rumble, which I'm sure you'll get to, and just let them go, right? And that's it. So Super Punch Out in games like that brought us on because there's still lines that I will never forget from video games.
Hmm.
Primarily, it's like watching a speed bag fight a punching bag. Like shit like that. Like when we got into Tyson boxing,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
when we grew up, and I want to say that was really the epitome of the '90s. And I've got some games that aren't really racing that we'll get into. But Joe, why don't you go on and talk about wrestling, and we'll keep moving
Okay.
forward here.
Okay. Okay. So, um, I'll go by the years, and because
Fine.
you've kind of mentioned it already.
Yeah,
It's on
that's
my
fine.
list. It's on my list, and we're gonna go
We
with.
don't have enough viewers to piss off, bro. So
Yeah,
just do
yeah,
you.
and WWE, don't come at me because I'm gonna call it its original fucking thing.
Yeah, get
And
fucked.
and 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 the Panda Group people, don't come at me because I'm gonna use the original fucking name. WWF Royal Rumble for the Super fucking Nintendo, dude. I can't even ac- add or accumulate or whatever the time that I've spent. Like I can't tell you
The amount
the
of time
hours
as
that I
Razor
fucking.
Ramon.
Dude, Razor, like Doink the
Yeah.
Clown, One
Gold
Two Three
Dust.
Kid,
Yeah.
yeah, fucking like all the and like the amount of time I wasted in this game just in the character select just to listen to the theme songs, right? Undertaker, like fucking Yokozuna,
Oh fuck.
Tatanka, dude. Like, oh my God, I know some of these characters are pretty racist nowadays,
That's fine.
but back then, so fucking I almost said Luther, Luger,
Yeah.
like all those famous characters. Because now, honestly, like I don't know how wrestling is now. I don't think there's a lot of characters. I think it's a lot of basic white boys and basic whatever
It's
people with basic
attitudes. It's
names.
not really the character that it once
Yeah,
was. Yeah.
like, but these were again Doink the Clown. Like Doink the Clown, the dude with the green hair dressed up as a clown, right?
The
Like,
giant hammer.
oh, Tatanka, like I keep mentioning, but like playing this game. Now, Royal Rumble is a professional wrestling game released in 1993 for the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. I played on Super Nintendo. Is a It is based on the World Wrestling Federation, which is now the WWE now, featuring a variety of matches, including the newly added Royal Rumble match. Now, I'll tell you right now, I didn't play any other fucking match other than Royal Rumble.
Yeah. There was no point.
Whether I was playing by myself or whether I was playing with other people, right? Only Royal Rumble. That's all we're playing. Because I believe with Royal, no, I think when you got eliminated, you were out.
Yeah.
I
And you
can't
had
remember
to
if you
wait it
came
out.
back and you had to watch. But you know what? Part of the fun was watching the computers fight too, right? Now, the game boasts several new features, including an on-screen grappling meter. So what that
Oh yeah.
means is like when you get into grapple, yeah, and then you have to mash the button
Yeah.
to try to beat the other person to get the meter over to do your move. You could either suplex, you could like body slam, you could hip toss. You also had your punches, your kicks, you had your running attacks.
And don't
You could
forget, we
also run up
finally
on.
had top bumpers
We
for
did, we
specials.
did. Which were, and also I think one was choke, one was like a choke, and one was like an eye rake or something. If I remember,
I
I can't
remember the
remember.
eye rake. I do remember the eye
Yeah,
rake.
yeah, and I think one was like a choke thing where like the ref counted for like 5 seconds while you're choking the person. And you could also throw them into the corner. You could do corner moves, right? Throw them into the thing, into the rope, and do like rope moves and stuff. So there's a variety of different moves. And I think like a lot of the times, like the characters kind of all had the same thing, but some of them usually had like one or two moves that the other one couldn't do. Um, and the goal of it was to tire out your opponent enough
That
to
they
when
would
you're
wobble.
grappling. Yeah, yeah, and then you grapple them and then you tap that R button to get your special. Now, the thing with these wrestling games, and I'm going to mention it with the other one that we're going to talk about, is you had to, if you didn't know wrestling, you had to figure it out, right? So, like, if you didn't know the wrestlers and what their moves were, you had to, because some of them you had to go to the top rope,
Yeah.
right? They had to be on the ground. You had to go to the top rope. Then you press the R button, and then you did your special. Like, so, like you had to know the wrestler in order to know the moves, or you're just testing it. Okay, I got him tired enough. I'm gonna grapple him. I'm gonna hit that R button. Okay, that did nothing. Okay, I'm gonna throw him into the ropes. I'm gonna hit that R button. Okay, that did nothing. That wasn't his move, right? And typically, what you wanted to do is do your move, and usually when you did your move and the person was tired enough, and you could tell how tired they were because of how quickly your meter went when you were tapping the button, right? Because usually it was like a tug of war in the beginning, and then you'd wear them down,
Yeah,
right?
if you're
And
listening, think
then
of it like a resistance meter almost.
yeah, yeah, I think they kind of have that now, maybe in wrestling games. Like I know they played around with different mechanics, but the other thing about this is you could not in the Royal Rumble mode, but in the other modes, you could run out of the ring, you could knock the ref out.
Yeah.
You could run out of the ring. You could go to the side. You could pull a chair from underneath the ring, run back into the ring, and hit your opponent and beat the shit out of them with the chair, and then get rid of the chair before the ref wakes up. Because I think if you use the chair when the ref is awake, you got disqualified. I think that's how
Some,
it worked.
but there's something I wanted
Um,
to go back to because you were talking about when we played Royal. I wonder which, maybe it was just if you're co-oping, but I do remember, and you had mentioned it briefly there, that you were able to come back as another player. And I'm having like,
yeah,
there was something, but that might have just been if you were solo or one-on-one. But I think if we played
yeah, or maybe it
plural
was an
people, it
option that
was
you
a
would
no.
pick.
Yeah, like if it was
Yeah,
team event
yeah.
or I don't know, but there was something
Yeah,
there.
because
We'd
I
have to
do
look into it.
remember you'd wait, and then because you sometimes you're disappointed, you're like, ah,
Yeah,
fuck, I came back as this character, I got to play as them now, right?
yeah,
Like, so yeah, yeah, I do remember that. It might have, I don't know what maybe it was a button thing you had to press back in the
some
day. Like,
shit.
I
Yeah,
can't remember, but yeah. So yeah, I carried it. I was talking about the tug of war thing. Players may strike their opponent with steel chairs from outside the ring. Blah blah blah. There was countouts unless you knocked out the ref. Or again, I think you could go into the options and you could change all this shit. Like you could do like no countouts, no
yeah.
this, no that. I believe you could also do that too. Um, Everybody had their signature moves, and Mega placed this game at 40 in their top Mega Drive games of all time.
Yeah.
Mega Drive was like Sega Genesis back in Europe, right? Um, but dude, like that, like they had again, they had WWF. I think that's really it. But you could, yeah, you could do illegal moves, like the choking, like I mentioned. But the like again, the countless hours we just spent playing that game, and wrestling was huge. Like wrestling is one thing that me and you probably got into at the same time.
Yeah.
Watched it like it was huge. It was a big thing. We watched it every Monday Night Raw. We watched it every this, every that. Saturday morning Superstars or whatever it was called, right? Um, but yeah, dude, like again, one of those games where it's just like it was just fun to play. Like win or lose, you would have fun, right? Like
Well,
it was
and
just
that's it. And I think that's the one thing that the WWF did very differently, or at least wrestling games, because even WCW,
mhm,
they had. But in the other wrestling one I remember was Raw. When Raw first came out, that was like
mhm,
our realistic version of wrestling. But wrestling was always chaos. But that Royal Rumble game, that was the peak. You did it.
mhm.
You don't have. There's nothing to improve on it. You had a crazy roster of
Oh,
people,
dude, yeah.
sidekicks. Like that was it. And I think that's one thing that that wrestling games have brought, much like boxing games, is there is that chaos, but there is that little like fuck aroundness, like right, like Sting, and
Mm-hmm.
like you even said, we didn't have walkthroughs then. So for those of you again that were born past the '90s, back in the day where we used to have to sit there for hours and try to figure out, and like Joe said, if you didn't know what Shawn Michaels was Sweet Chin Music, the Yokozuna Bomb, the figure four leg lock, if you weren't in the right spot, it wouldn't work for you. You'd basically go to a hold and then you would be out, and then you'd be like, I got to figure this out.
Yeah, you would like
But
suplex a guy and you're like, "Oh fuck, okay, that wasn't it." And then you would like, "Okay, what if I throw him into the corner and do it? What if I?" And these are the things where again where it became fun too is like you would just invite your buddy, your cousin, your whatever over and you'd be like, "Yeah, I'm going to play as this person. You pick whoever, but let me beat you the fuck down
yeah, because I
and
got to
let me
figure
figure
this
out
out.
how to use his move." And
Yeah.
then the next time we play, you pick a character you want to learn. You could just beat the fuck out of me, and then we'll figure out how to use our moves and shit like that, right? Like it wasn't always just like I'm gonna beat the fuck out of you. It's like, hey man, let's figure this game out together. Like let's
Well,
just spend hours.
and that's what set it apart from your Mortal Kombat's, I think, is because
Mm-hmm.
Mortal Kombat, yeah, it was just like you said, it's just a 1v1 fighting platform. But this was so much different. Like you could play four of what, yeah, three other buddies. You could have four controllers hooked up. I think if even if you had the add-on, you can get up to eight. But it was one of the
Yeah,
first,
like the multi tap or whatever. I
yeah,
think
whatever it
you
was.
could.
It was something
Yeah.
ridiculous. But Royal Rumble set the stage, I think, because it was still realistic and chaotic. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
I had to personify Royal Rumble, it was mankind. It was everything you wanted. It was crazy. It was just a solid game. It was realistic. You had their moves. It gave you so much depth in
Yeah.
such a basic platform. And like you said, it didn't even fucking matter what other styles. And this is one thing that I noticed growing up. When we grew up, like we each had our style. Like some of us, and when I get into Need for Speed, we'll talk about it. But some of us didn't like certain games, right? But the Royal Rumble was one. It was like Halo and GoldenEye. No one
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to play, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there's games I'd rather watch you guys play hockey than play it, and same with
Mm-hmm.
football on the back end for me. But that was it. But I think Royal Rumble was one of the true original franchised games with the sport franchise that excelled. Because, like you said, we
Yeah.
had the knockoff games. We had, even today, and I'll jump into Tecmo Bowl here right away. But you had
Mm-hmm.
people like the Portland Seahawks, and but that was it. That's all we wanted. And I think once EA took it over, the American market came into it. Now we were in a whole different dynamic because like you said, you could market Blades of Steel as ice hockey and it's the same game, but to
Yeah.
us we'll always remember it's not ice hockey, we'll remember it as Blades of Steel. And I think that
Of course.
really plays into your demographic. And
Mm-hmm.
just before we go into Tecmo Bowl and football and the evolution prior to Madden anyways, is there anything else wrestling wise? Because like I said, I probably stopped playing wrestling games 2003-ish, so I don't have much to
Okay.
add to this.
Okay, so there's one more, and then we'll
Yeah.
move on, because I know it's a pretty big one with people wrestling and non-wrestling alike. Um, it was on the 64, and it was WCW NWO Revenge.
Oh shit. Yeah. Okay.
You remember this
I
one too
remember
now,
this one
right?
now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the thing about this game and the thing why it sticks in my brain too, and it might stick into other people's brain, is I didn't really know WCW. Like
No,
the
nobody did.
only reason why I knew about WCW because at this point is when the Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, aka Razor Ramon and Diesel, um, had that whole thing where they're like, "Hey, fuck you, WWF. We're the NWO now. We signed with the
Yeah.
WCW." They spray painted shit on people's back, and then they fucked off and went to WCW. Right? I think Bret Hart was on there too, and Bret Hart did it because of the whole
Yeah, they
Montreal
thought
screw job. Yeah.
they fuck. I remember Sting was involved at one point.
Sting was
Yeah,
also, and that's when he started dressing up like the Crow, dude. Oh, yeah. So WCW NWO. again, I can't even count the hours that I played with this game. And I didn't really, and the thing that intrigued me about this game is I didn't know really WCW, right? Like it was on Wednesday nights, or it was like
It wasn't a
WCW
part of the
Nitro
main
or
schedule
whatever.
for us, right? Like,
Yeah, because again, for people that are younger than us and our generation, and most likely our demographic, there wasn't a point where WWE owned everything. There was multiple different
yeah.
wrestling promotions, or whatever you want to call them, companies that competed for cable time, right? So it was WWF, WWE, it was WCW, and it was ECW, were
Yeah.
like I think the
The
three major
biggers,
ones,
yeah.
right? Yeah. Then there was like the little ones in between there, but
Like your
anyways,
AMAs.
uh,
But that's it. But like, if we had to bring it down to two, there was WWF, and then somewhere at number two was WCW. You
yeah,
were
and
aware of it,
WCW was normally the people that couldn't get into WWF. Like it was the people past their prime, right? Like it was the people that were kind of done in WWF, and then like their last hope was WCW, right? Like that's
well, and I think that's
kind
a
of what
good
it
way
was.
because even Shamrock, everybody went there. Like, and that was it.
Yeah,
If once you got out of the politics of, but some people started there. I'm pretty sure that's where Goldberg started. But if we're
yeah,
going way
and Rey
back,
Mysterio, I believe,
but they
started
kind of
there
worked
as
in
well.
but it was the farm league for
Yes,
the
yeah, it
WWF.
was the AHW
Yeah.
to, or the AHL to the
The
NHL.
QMJQHL, we're here in Canada, so
Yeah,
whatever
it was
whatever
that,
Quebec
right?
calls it.
And whoever pissed off Vince McMahon got fucking left behind and went to
Yeah.
WCW, and then they had to work their way up, and once it become popular again, then they got
Yeah.
called back, right? Like that's how it was. So WCW is a professional wrestling game developed by Asmic Ace Entertainment
Oh,
and
fuck.
Aki Corporation. Don't ask me who the fuck these people are. I didn't research it. And was released by THQ. Now THQ, I believe, is not a company anymore, or they might have been brought back. I don't remember.
That was a long ago.
Yeah, they used to be a pretty big publisher,
They were
but
on
I
top of
don't.
everything, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't. And for sports, I think a lot of them were like sports. They did a lot of sports shit. And it was released in 1998 for the N64 game console. Uh, it has a sequel, WCW versus NWO World Tour. It is a sequel, sorry, to that. I never played World Tour, but again, I wasn't a WCW guy. I was a WWF
It
guy.
wouldn't have been the one we would have reached for at Blockbuster.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. So, like his predecessor, Revenge features Aki's proprietary grappling system, as well as a heavily improved graphics and championship mode, and a large roster of wrestlers. So, when I looked into it, there's like 80 different wrestlers in this
Well,
game.
and here's my question, Joe. Was that one of the first that actually got you into career mode where you were actually on, because you
Yes.
could do that, right? Like you built
Yeah.
your NWO brand almost. But I don't
Yeah.
remember it
So
much. Like I can't remember Royal Rumble having a career mode, but maybe it
no, it
does.
had like whatever. Like it was like fucking. I think it had an
A
exhibition
solo
mode.
franchise,
A
fucking yeah.
solo, like you just kind of like did it until you won the belt, and then that was it, or something like
Yeah,
I
like
can't remember.
10
I don't
fights or
actually,
whatever, 10 tier, like
actually,
Mortal
I don't
Kombat
think
used to
it
be like.
did. Yeah, I think it was just so you could pick one-on-one tag team or whatever. Like
Yeah.
WWF Royal Rumble didn't have like anything. So the cool thing about WCW, and when you were saying about that, the championship mode, you would have to go through it to unlock wrestlers. The whole roster wasn't unlocked to you. And believe it or not, kids, you didn't have to pay to unlock it.
No.
You actually had to
Just had
play
to
the
do
game.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to beat the game multiple times with multiple different characters in multiple different ways, and you unlock shit, is how you would get it. So, Revenge gained critical praise and tremendous commercial success, according to 1999 article by IGN. Was the best-selling wrestling game for N64 console, and at the time was the top-selling third-party Nintendo game ever, ever. So from Nintendo to 64, it was the top-selling third-party game ever, right?
But in the one thing that
Um,
I do remember that, like in 30 years later is still sticking in my memory was just the side videos. Like once you would do something or you would unlock something, you would get that extra fucking like bonus clip side camera footage. Like when you would walk back after, it would be China there hitting someone with a chair, but that was it. But like Joe said, guys, is there once was a time where you just kept playing the game over and over. There was many games
Hmm.
you beat it, then you can come back with, like even Fable. Like if you beat it on super badass mode, you come back with the sword. Like
Hmm.
there was always stuff like that, and I think that's one thing. But if we had to talk the two most iconic games, wrestling, those got to be it. Like
Yeah.
I remember SummerSlam, I remember this, but Royal Rumble, and I might be wrong, was one of the first with the cage match. And I think, or
Um,
no, which one was that?
I think okay, so I know WCW NWO was supposed to have a cage match and they didn't, like the revenge, but I
Yeah,
think World Tour might have had it. And I think the
it was in
first
that
one might
era.
have been PlayStation. Yeah, it might have been the PlayStation era that did for WWF. Like maybe it was Raw or SmackDown
It
or
could have been Raw
one of
because I think
those.
and Raw basically copied, and I don't. I'm assuming that was it. But Raw ended up taking a big feel from the WCW game. Like you got to that point where it was the same, right? You get the unlock like cutscenes,
Hmm.
this, and that. You can build your career, and this is where games started to shift from that point of you know more more exhibition to more career mode. And we
Career
saw that
mode
at.
and
Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say an extra like shit, right? Because of this era, if we remember this era, the attitude era, the fuck
Yeah,
you era, the I'm a badass era,
the
then they
grunge
started
era,
coming out
yeah.
with like the hardcore matches, the anything goes matches, the but
Barbed wire
backstage
matches, yeah.
fighting, barbed wire matches, right? Like they so in the games they started adding that the hell in the cell, the this and that to more extreme, right? Um, so I believe, like in this game for sure, when I was watching videos and I forgot, like you make the character bleed, you beat the shit out of them enough, like there's blood on them, like there's
Yeah.
blood coming out of them. Again, it's N64. You watch it now, the graphics aren't the best, right? But I believe you could also go under the ring, grab a chair. You could do
Yeah,
all
there was
sorts
yeah.
of that stuff. Yeah. Some of the characters came out with like managers, or I can't remember what else they were called, but like, they'd have the
The
sexy
female
female.
the
Yeah.
acquaintances.
And then like those people would beat the shit out of you out of the ring if you got thrown out of the ring, right? Like you had to worry about them too. So here's some other facts. WCW NWO Revenge surpassed the success of its predecessor World Tour. In its first month of release, it was the second best-selling home console game in the United States behind Metal Gear Solid.
That's saying something.
Metal Gear Solid and then WCW NWO Revenge, where like that was one and two for a time period of
And you're
best-selling
talking because
games.
Metal Gear Solid was, and we'll get into shooters at some point, but Metal Gear Solid was the game growing up before Call of Duty. Um, I guess there was Call of Duty, Medal of Honor. Like we had those games, but Metal Gear Solid and Siphon
You,
Filter were the
mm-hmm.
fucking shit.
Because again,
GoldenEye
at a
was
time,
GoldenEye, right? Like,
yeah,
but
at a time it was just single player or co-op. There
yep.
was no fucking online, right? There was no online.
And
So
that
like you
changed with
wanted to play
Halo.
those Metal Gears and shit. Yeah. So and then also the game was the seventh best-selling video game of 1998 in the United States.
Yeah, that I can see.
Like again,
So what
think
is
about
that?
the
A
games coming out.
5 year reign, give or take?
So
When is?
it came out in, well, no, it came out in 98,
Okay.
but also in 98, I believe like you had Final Fantasy 8, you
Yeah, you
had a
had
bunch
everything
of fucking games on the PlayStation, and it was the eighth or the seventh best selling game
out of a
in
catalog of
1998.
100, including Crash
Fucking
Bandicoots
like, dude,
and all
it's
those. Yeah.
crazy. It won the console fighting game of the year.
Yeah.
Um, it quickly reached player choice status, and eventually selling 1.88 million copies in the US,
Yeah.
rankings especially among the best-selling N64 games. So your health meter was a spirit meter, so they changed it. You
Yeah.
didn't have a health meter; it was a spirit meter. So
You could taunt. I
as you're
remember
getting,
that.
yes, so as you're getting beat to shit, your spirit's going down, and the other spirit guy, the spirit of the opponent's going up. You could taunt to get your spirit up.
Yeah.
Once you had your spirit all the way up, is yes, yeah, is when you could do your special move. and that's how it worked. So
Yeah.
I wanted to get your spirit meter all the way up, and it was the same idea. I think you had to hit like a L button or
It was a
whatever once you
momentum
like
shift, and
grappled.
you'd never seen
Yes,
that in a game before, right? Because
yes,
and imagine this, if you've never played it, imagine that you are literally watching a wrestling event, and all of a sudden the hero, because there was heels and heroes, the
yep.
hero would start getting up, shaking the ropes, and then the crowd would get a little
Mm-hmm.
louder, and that was it. And
Mm-hmm.
that was shit we didn't see. And that's when we started taking that turn into realism. But like I said, after that era, because for us, that's when we really played into it. But that era of wrestling game, might have changed to now, but I don't think, other than graphics, there wasn't much to change. You had names, you had
Yeah.
people, but the format, the fighting style, everything, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, you still talk about Parasite Eve just because of the style. And
Yeah.
it's the same with me. Why do I like Game Boy games so much? Because Pokemon, all that, they all had the same style. And I think that that
Mm-hmm.
was a style that we were used to. You could fit it on the Super Nintendo pad or the old fucking Duke, whatever you
Mm-hmm.
had to do. But wrestling, and I don't want to say it wasn't realistic, but wrestling continued that kind of Space Jam idea. And we'll talk about
Again, it was the characters, right? Like it was like
there was an
you had
attitude to it.
Sting. Yeah, you had Sting. He was dead. He came back from the dead. He did this. You
Right.
had the
Or when
fucking
Undertaker would come out and the purple lights would go, and then yeah, like
yeah, yeah. You had Rey Mysterio.
it
What does
was a
he look like under
vibe.
that mask? I don't know, right? You know what I mean? Like you got like these characters, and you believed in these characters, and like you believed in their story, and like their hatred towards other
It be
wrestlers, and like
it was a living, breathing game.
yeah,
And that's really
it
the
was a
only way
fucking
I can.
soap opera, dude.
But it was so good though, because then you
It's
beat
so
it.
good.
And here's the thing, because I don't know how many people replay in this generation, anyways, replay games that you beat like a start to finish. But that was it. And like you said, that was a big thing, because even if you beat Royal Rumble, you got through it all, you unlocked someone and you came back and you beat it harder, you beat it at an effort.
Yeah.
Like there was always something different. But just because we're hitting the hour mark here, let's move on.
Yeah, yeah, let's move on. Let's move on. The
Let
only other thing is you were able to custom change the wrestlers. Each
which
wrestler
brought
had
us
four
in,
slots.
and I think
Yeah.
that that was one thing that the wrestling games brought us into when we started talking about NFL, NHL, and NBA. I think that that is wrestling was really the time when we got to create a player, and you did it your way. Like
Hmm.
and that was it. You chose the spandex, everything down. But I digress. Let's move on to Dan's sport of
Let's go,
choice,
buddy.
the
Let's go.
football. So there's a lot of football games. They're all great. Madden has probably, and I didn't nerd out like Joe did. I made a spreadsheet, but I didn't do sales facts. But I guarantee you, Madden is easily top five seller across a franchise. It's been around for 20 years. I'd find it hard to believe that there wasn't, because I only knew people that would only play football games. And that was it. Like they had very little interest in everything. Even when the Nintendo Wii came out, I'm going to try to cut it before that, because the Nintendo Wii changed the way that you observed the game. You could now throw, like there was, right? You could rap, and that was it. But let's go back into time and let's talk about the Tecmo Bowl. Back
My
when
God, bro.
games were just fucking about abuse. And I loved it
My God.
because
Tecmo Bowl.
the Tecmo Bowl had a few things, and there were some glitches that some will remember and some weren't. But this is what I refer to as the superstar era. So, what made Tecmo Bowl popular was Bo Jackson. Now, Bo Jackson had a bit of a glitch. So, if you're creating a player, you would assume that 99 is the highest I could get. Well, wait a minute. Bo Jackson was unstoppable. There was some glitch that it was basically bro pumped steroids before the game, double chested them in, and he went because he was unstoppable. But most of the run game was. And the one thing with the Techno Bowl that was just fucking crazy, this is where I'm talking about, where it went from the NES to arcade. We started pulling the controllers off of the arcade and bringing it to an American demographic. And the Techno Bowl to this day and I'll put the sound clip on. Everybody's going to remember it, but it was one of the best sports games of all time. Fight me, don't give a fuck, don't care. The other things, amongst the glitches, right? You had bomb plays that one play would win you the game. It could be 0-0 for that entire 5-minute game, and then all of a sudden, and then you'd get a cutscene of, generic defensive back number 2 coming across and taking the ball, and for some reason Ron Woodson would be running back, but that game was just chaos. It didn't matter if you practiced that game, you couldn't guarantee a win. And I think that's one of the greatest things ever. Like, there was even a code, and I looked it up because I'm that much of a nerd. You could enter in your team name as a code. And this is when cheats were good. This was, I want to say, before Game Shark. Just kind of, there was the little gap where people had the Easter eggs and he liked it. So if you put in,
it was programmed into the game.
Right. So when you put your team name in, because you were allowed, 8 characters, you got 397BFFA5. That would give you an absolutely invisible team. Right?
What?
I'm not even sure.
Dude,
I forgot about this.
I'll admit, I've heard about this game, and again, I know about the Bo Jackson thing because of Family Guy, but I never knew anything about this game.
But even on Game Boy, if you played it on Game Boy, like when it came out, there was ways where you could get certain all-star teams. You could get, and this is where the Hall of Fame teams, where you would put in the code, right? Because we saw that in the 90s, where if you played hockey or whatever, you could get the 92 Stanley Cup champions, the Hartford Whalers, and it was kind of the same thing. So you would start this uber team of like Harlem Globetrotter level football players, and it just became a feel. Like I said, it was a vibe. You didn't even give a fuck about the rules. But yeah, if you were lucky enough to have Bo Jackson on your team, you absolutely demolished, crushed. It didn't matter who they had. If Tom Brady was alive then, and it didn't matter. Bo Jackson would have destroyed Tom Brady. But that is the one thing that I loved about the Tecmo Bowl. And like I said, that 80s, 90s style arcade sport game that wasn't popular in the, console's origin countries, but here absolutely blew up. Because now I don't think you can find many games about the NFL that don't have that Madden tag on it. And even if they called it, right, because we're not calling it Wayne Gretzky's hockey anymore, right? It is now NHL. But when you play football, it's still Madden. And that is the one thing that I still like, rest in peace to the big man. But John Madden, his coaching and his announcing changed the game so much that it even came into the video games. Now, we're going to go on to, and I can talk Madden all day. Believe me, there's nothing Dan would rather do. Go ahead.
I don't mean to. I'm just looking up at all these fucking passwords. When you mentioned that password, I was like,
you remember this
Super Bowl
shit?
password.
And that's how we used to do things.
You could just skip. You could do a 10
You can skip career mode. You can fucking
yeah.
You go right
to the league championship.
Super Bowl games. Yep. And that was
Holy
it. But that's what games
dude.
used to give us, and they weren't hidden behind. And I hope someone really does it, but they weren't hidden behind paywalls, and that's one thing we see now. But back then, you needed to create value for people to buy those games because it wasn't really a thing. You're talking about a rough economy. We're going to see again the same. Everything's cyclical. It's coming back, but games like Tecmo Bowl got people who weren't interested in the sport interested in the sport. Regardless of how accurate it was, it didn't matter. And we're going to talk my next game, which was my second favorite because there are two. There is NFL Streets, but we're also going to talk NFL Blitz, where it all started.
Yeah, I was hoping.
NFL Blitz was the greatest game ever conceived. And much like Mutant League Hockey and Mutant League Football, it was no holds barred. You had these steroid drunkies. It looked like you got the fucking Expendables as a starting fucking line that, eventually came out, hit. And like I said, there was very, very, very little rules, right? You had late hits that were encouraged, not banned. encouraged. You had
Yeah.
trash talking, you had taunting, you had turbo, you had rules in football that didn't even exist. But
Players broke bones.
that's it.
Like,
And that's it. And you had, right, the machine gun John Jones got hurt. Now you've got like, the pit bull polydemonic coming out. But it was stuff like that. And Blitz, I think, gave you that superhero feel to the game.
mhm.
And like I said, for those who weren't, like, we talk about Super Smash Brothers, we talk about all those were games that brought people from a different genre into a sports, into a fighting game, into something else. Like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat had their own guys. But this is a football game without real football players. It's like the Mean Machine. It's like something you'd have. But there was such and it was a game because that was one game you guys would play. And like I said, if you weren't a football fan, you weren't a fan of, because back then the Madden games were sketchy at best. Um, but you had this new dynamic, and N64 and PS1 really brought this kind of gameplay out where we talked about it. It was just chaos. It was 3-on-3, 5-on-5. I can't remember, but you had so many different, you had obstacles. Like there was, I think one of them had a skills competition. I'm not sure which one, but like you had to like break the brick wall with your pass. It
Oh,
was
yeah, yeah, yeah,
just
yeah. But
chaos.
Blitz was like it did have NFL people, I think,
To an
but
extent.
I believe, but what it was is they had trouble making it because like it was supposed to be gorier than what it was,
Yeah.
but then the NFL stepped in because they're like, you're using like our NFL name.
Yeah.
We need to like calm this down a little because that's when CTE kind of started being in like not in the news, but like
It was
not like
coming
it
there
is
because
now.
even when I was playing in high school, when that was coming out, like that was becoming a big
Yeah.
thing, right? Like, and you played hockey with stop signs on the back of your fucking jersey because we used to play these games and we're like, fucking A, bro. And like I said, I could sit here, we could talk the Madden era, we could talk everything. Madden has gotten to a point where it is so realistic now that I can just watch. Like I don't feel like being
Hmm.
participated. But if we brought back NFL Blitz, Dano's a part of that. Like that's something we would
Yeah,
play
dude.
right now. Like me
You
and
could
Joe.
like
Go ahead.
you could like suplex people in
Yeah.
this shit.
Oh,
Like
dude, it
it
was
was
wrestling. It
fucking
was Royal
crazy,
Rumble
dude.
football. It
You
was a great
like
game.
DDT'd
Yeah.
people. Like it was fucking crazy.
And the thing is, it didn't matter. Like you didn't have to know how to play the game. It was just a button
No.
masher of just chaos.
You
And
pick a play and then just see what happens.
and that
Like
and that's it. And now since I got to talk about racing as well, and I don't want to, you know, get too realistic. I want to talk about some. They aren't really racing. People are going to get mad at me. I don't give a fuck. Road Rash, Twisted Metal are two of the greatest fucking automobile games ever made. Eat my dick. There. I said it. I don't give a shit.
road
Because,
road rash.
but this is where shit started, right, Joe? Because you and I used to play that shit on Windows 3.1. Guess
Yeah,
what,
man.
guys? There used to be Windows 3.1. They didn't even have years then. And that's it. But you would play games like Road Rash
Fuck,
where you would
dude.
have a chain, you would have something. And Road Rash eventually evolved into Twisted Metal because Twisted Metal 2 and 3 were PlayStation's crown glory. Like, and even now, I'm kind of pumped that they made a show. I haven't watched it yet. But
So good.
is it?
So
Okay.
good.
But
Watch
that's
it.
what we
Yeah.
wanted, right? Because the clown, everything, it was just so, it was great.
So fucking good.
But
Like the
it was
only
an
thing they
arcade style game, and I think that's one thing
yeah.
that with the emergence of, we've got the Unreal Engine, like the realism has taken over. No one just wants to fucking play around anymore. Like, even if playing superhero games, like playing Injustice is so serious. All I want to do is be Harley Quinn and just like hit people with a giant hammer that goes
Hmm.
like we talked about, like Doink, right? Because if you got Doink back in Royal Rumble, you were pumped. Sometimes
Hmm.
we forget that video games are supposed to be fun, and I think that's one
The
thing that we got into. And I
fucking road rash, bro.
I love the arcade style games like
Fucking
that, but
on a motorcycle kicking people.
yeah,
I'm looking at screenshots. I was like, you mentioned it. And I remember you mentioned it, and I'm like, it looks more kind of realistic than I thought. But yet
But
again,
back in the
you're in a
day,
motorcycle.
that was it, right? You had your guy in the middle. You could tilt, tilt, tilt
Yeah.
like you would in everything F-Zero, all those kind of games. Because F-Zero was another big one that I'm not going to talk about that we should talk about. But we've got these racing games that are now taking off. Even when you play Mario Kart, like I haven't played the newest, but even Mario Kart on Wii, like you still have the dirt bike game like
Mm-hmm.
courses in Mario Kart. And I think that's one thing that we really need to give props to is the arcade style racers, right? When you went to an arcade back, way back when, the first thing you did is if you saw fucking motorcycles, you were on motorcycles. That
Mm-hmm.
was it. You would sit
Mm-hmm.
there, you would be like this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we got
Mm-hmm.
out of that because now we're playing, and don't get me wrong, I love F1, but it's stuff like that where you're so tuned in and dialed in that it's become its own category because these are guys who spend 3-4 grand on racing builds, right? You're making your pod with racing wheels. And I think that that is one thing that we neglect when we talk about the evolution of game is that it got to a point where sports games became such its own category and genre that we started doing things, right? When VR came out when we were kids, we had the little boxing ring, right? You
Yeah.
had your octagon, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talk about
Yeah.
music. When Guitar Hero came out, that changed.
Oh yeah, dude.
That
Those
changed,
plastic apparatus,
drumming.
like.
That changed
Mm-hmm.
everything, right? You
Mm-hmm.
had more people
Mm-hmm.
willing to pick up a guitar now. You were listening to
Mm-hmm.
classic rock. Like these were
Yep.
all things that we forget came to us in that 90s to 2000s crossover. And that's why I kind of wanted to bring this back. So let's talk more realistic now. And we'll talk about, the move into Forza. But the other game
Okay.
that we played was Gran Turismo. Now,
Ooh,
somewhere
yes.
between Twisted Metal and Gran Turismo, we got Need for Speed. So this is kind of how I want to highlight this because Need
Okay.
for Speed gave us that continuation of kind of fucking chaos, but you could do it. It wasn't as geared like Gran Turismo. Gran
Mm-hmm.
Turismo was a visually beautiful game for the time. Me and
Yeah.
your brother played that shit constantly.
Yeah,
But
and to get the licenses, like
yeah,
the okay,
and
yeah,
again,
for I know
you
you're gonna
had
talk
to
about Need for
play.
Speed, but
Yeah, no, go ahead.
you had to
This is why we
play
do
and
this.
get good, and in order to continue on, again, I didn't have to pay.
You had a
I had to
skills
get
tier.
good, and I had to get licenses in order to move into the next tier of races. And to get licenses, I had to complete objectives and get good because the game was being like, hey, we're going to give you faster fucking cars now. We need to make sure you could drive. And you wouldn't get your license until you passed all the tests. So crazy, dude. Such a crazy concept. And I loved it.
Well, but
Gran
even
Turismo
with
was
it,
great.
like, and if we're gonna talk about it, to like, I'll put Mario Kart up in the Twisted Metal category. But these were games that
Yeah.
kind of did it, right? Because with Mario Kart, if you wanted Rainbow Road, you had to beat the circuit. And I think that
Oh,
this is
yeah.
one thing that we brought into games where we went from that cartoony animated, and Gran Turismo showed it very well, where they brought us into the McLarens, they brought us into the Lotus. You're talking about the Autobahn and international racing more than just
Mm-hmm.
a plug and fuck around. But that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Is you had to grind for your licenses. There was career modes. This was real. If you blew a tire, like even your tire wear, I can't remember if it was Gran Turismo that started that, but you could see your tires starting going red. I'm probably wrong. It,
Maybe or
it
was it
was likely Forza.
or was it
Forza
Forza? Maybe it was
Forza took
Forza.
shit
Yeah.
Forza took Gran Turismo to a whole new level. But like I
Mm-hmm.
said, if we're talking about it, and one racing game, like I said, that is still uh, simplistically beautiful is Mario Kart. It's the
Yeah,
same game as it was. We've added a
it's good.
couple
It's
things,
good fun.
and that's it because everybody wants to
Yeah.
play it, even if you don't like a racing game. Like if you liked racing games, you played Gran
Mm-hmm.
Turismo. If you didn't like racing games, you did not play Gran Turismo. You played Twisted Metal, you played other games, and then we got into Forza because with the PS1 to PS2 switchover is when we got into the world of realism. And this is where your Maddens came out. Like your 97 to 2003 was really where we started taking that, and I don't want to call it unrealistic because it was fucking fun, that arcade style game. And we turned
Hmm.
it into a console game. We turned it in for that at home. So you had your grinders that wanted to sit there. Like, fuck, how many. Me and Mike and Tim sat there and played Need for Speed Underground on rotating schedules because we all worked at the Brick and DJ'd. And all I remember
Yep.
is like I did the sprints, Mike did the drag racing, and Tim did the circuits because that's just how we were tuned. Because each
Yeah.
of
You had
us,
the drifting competitions. You
and
had
that was it.
oh, holy
Because
fuck, dude.
you had to be good at something. Like
Yeah.
it was very difficult to be good at the entire game. But the thing is, this was another grinder. If you wanted the performance exhaust, you had to beat this. If you wanted to
Yeah. You had
upgrade,
to.
and this is it. And this is one thing we've lost in games today, which really, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the start to finish games. I'm playing one right now that I love, and I hope that it's, I've got something after ending. But
Mhm.
when we talk about the structure of a game, let's talk about, like, and I'll go right out there. Clear Obscure versus Gran Turismo, right? Like, Gran Turismo, you got something off the back end. Clear Obscure, not. It's a beautiful game. Everybody wants to play it. It's the game
Yeah.
of the year. But for racing
Mhm.
people, Gran Turismo, Forza, and even F1. Like when I played, I think the last F1 I played was 2024. And that was ridiculous. If there was a bead of rain coming down, you would spin out if you didn't have the
Yeah. I
right
can't
tires.
play those.
And
No,
that's
I
it.
can't play those.
But
Yeah.
those are the ones that I sink my teeth into now, Joe, because you
Mhm.
know me, I have to be the best. I refuse to be
Yeah.
number two. And even though nobody's watching me, I've got to text Carrie and be like, you sons of bitches, you guys got me into fucking F1. You cocksucker. I can't beat the third race. I fucking hate you. Let's play Mario Kart. But that was it. Like for me, those are the ones because those are the ones. It's more of a reactive game than a methodical game.
Mhm.
Whereas we played Need for Speed, and Need for Speed Underground is where I like to end this because this is where we saw the biggest change in the sports world, gaming, and everything. We now have Xbox and PlayStation 2 coming out, but Need for Speed Underground, again, we didn't have the walkthroughs. We had to figure that shit
Mhm.
out. But you
Yep.
had everything from a tachometer that would tell you when to shift, and you're fucking, but like this was your life. Like this is
Dude,
all
you're
you did.
drifting. You add the underglows, dude. You're
That's
you're
it.
you're listening to a fucking wig, and all thanks to shout out fucking Fast and Furious. I think if Fast and Furious never came out, I don't know if those games would come out,
And they
right?
wouldn't
But
have,
like,
right? Because
and they came
before,
out at the exact right time because it was that whole street racing fucking
I don't think
pimp out my ride.
if those two didn't come out simultaneously, Joe, I don't think, because it was probably FF2 by the time we got, or Fast and Furious 2 when Need for
Yeah.
Speed actually hit, because the first Fast and Furious took off. But this is
Because
where
there
we
were other
went.
Need for Speeds too, right? But they didn't hit like Need for like everyone's
No one gave a
clamoring for
shit about
Need for
Need for
Speed
Speed
Underground 2. Yeah,
because
Need for
Need for
Speed because
Speed,
they made other ones,
we had
right?
Need for Speed USA, we had Need for Speed, but Road Rash, Twisted Metal, Gran
Yeah.
Turismo, and Mario Kart, each console had their game. Need for Speed wasn't that game until I think this was about the third or fourth Need for Speed because you used to be able to
Yeah.
buy that shit for $5 in a PC box and play
Mhm.
whatever. But it never had the same elements. Like Need for Speed, when it originally came out, from what I remember, was a lot like Road Rash, right? You had X weapons,
Yeah.
there you were stealing
Um.
cars. Like it was kind of like a GTA precursor
he-
thought
I
of.
I think when it first came out, you're
Yeah, because
saying.
it wasn't specifically, it was Hot Pursuit. That's what it was. Because we
That's
had
it.
hot,
You're the cops are chasing you.
yeah,
Yes.
that's what it was.
You'd
So
be
it was,
racing, and then all of a sudden cops would come, and you'd have to outrace the cop.
and,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
there was a criminal element to it. And I think that's what I'm trying to
Yes.
get to.
Yeah,
So,
you're street racing. Yeah.
right, whereas Gran Turismo, you were pinned. Forza, you were pinned. And what Forza brought for motorsport games is something that I don't have the hours to talk about. Like Forza's so fucking good, I can't even play Forza because I'm so shit. I like watching people play, but these are people that aren't even married. Like this is your life. Like once you get into the Forzas, the F1s, like
Mhm.
that's a whole new breed. Like you got people talking about loadouts on Call of Duty. You've got people flying to go look at fucking courses of F1. And now that F1 has come to America the way that it has, I think F1 is going to see a crazy takeoff. Like even the games, like I said, the games are so fucking realistic now, Joe, that if I went back and turned on Need for Speed Underground with dum da 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 da
Dum, dum,
dum
dum, dum,
da da dum,
dum.
but what else? But this is the thing, and I think that this is where I'm going to kind of sum up the point is the
Mhm.
era of customization kind of changed. And this is where things went better. Because what was the first thing you could do in Need for Speed Underground? I don't even know if you're going to think about it, but it was one of the most important fucking things to me in life at the time.
Was it your underglow?
Nope. It was the fact that
No.
you could upload your own music.
Oh, yes, yes. Okay. I couldn't remember if that was just because the Xbox was modded and we were just able to do that, or if it was the game
We
itself.
did it
But you are right.
anyways. But
You are right. Yes, you
the
are
thing
right. You
is,
could.
me, Mike, and Tim listened to the Black Eyed Peas album so many fucking times on there where I remember I had to turn the radio off because I couldn't even think about shifting because I was so anxious. But that was it. But that was the one thing that Need for Speed showed us. And that was kind of, in my opinion, after Twisted Metal 3, I know there was a fourth, probably a fifth, but it kind of
I think it
faded
was
out.
Twisted Metal Black. I think it was called. But
And that
yeah,
was
after
it.
then
Two and
that after
three
that
were the
it
money.
petered out.
Two and
Yep.
three were the
Yep.
money. Those will be games that, like I said, other than updated graphics, it's the same game to this day. But when we talk Need for Speed eventually, like there was Grand Theft Auto, but Grand Theft Auto after San Andreas Vice City ish is really when, in my opinion, it started. Like the late Xbox, the original Xbox, Joe. Were there any like there was probably GTA 3
I think yeah. So okay. So a
because
PlayStation.
360 is really when GTA took off and left the
PlayStation
rest behind.
2 had GTA Vice City. I believe it was 2 had and it had San Andreas.
But that was later,
Uh
wasn't it?
San Andreas no, San Andreas was definitely because GTA 4 was PS3, I
Okay.
think. Hold on, I'm gonna look up
Yeah, I
this
was gonna
timeline
say look
quickly.
this up before we get nerds yelling at us again.
GTA series. I know 1 and 2 were PlayStation and those were top down.
Yeah. But those were
Uh,
interchangeable. Like those were greatest hits that you would be thrilled that you got at 1999 at fucking Walmart or some game department. But like
so yeah, so GTA 3 was 2001, so that would have been PS2. GTA Vice City PS2.
2003, 2004.
2002, and then San Andreas was 2004. I believe the PlayStation 3 came out in 2006. So that would have been Vice City Stories and then 4.
And
And
that's really when
then
GTA took off. Like
yeah, and
prior to
then
that, like
GTA 5 was PlayStation 4.
because like we talked about,
So,
GTA was kind of, and I don't know if any of those, but we had Hot Pursuit, we had Road Rash. There was ample racing games where essentially you were just running out of the cops, and then GTA
yeah.
took the world by storm. Like even now, there's people. My kid's waiting for GTA 6. And I remember this from when I first got married to he's fucking graduating, and I'm still waiting for GTA
Yeah,
6.
still waiting for it. I think they say it's coming out this year, but
But the thing
I
is, when you
don't
have a
fucking think
game,
so.
when you have a game like that, Joe, like when you have a game like San Andreas that changed the game, like completely changed the landscape. Because now you were in more of an open world, right? The rendering was completely different. Like once we got to Xbox 360, like I said, the world went to realism, and I think that that's
Yeah.
one thing that we don't remember. Because I'm going to say a game that a lot of people aren't going to remember, and it was called Midnight Club. Midnight Club was another racing game. Again, it's one
Yeah,
of
I
these that we forget
don't really
about
remember it, but
because
yes, you're
it
right.
was its own, and that's really where we turned racing into a playground. It had shortcuts, speed chaos, and that was a PS2er. And when we talk about Road Rash and those games, that was where it came. And then we moved on to our Twisted Metals, and in my opinion, Twisted Metal really gave birth to GTA. Regardless if they're the same or not, I think that once Twisted Metal finally fell off is when GTA finally started to take off. Because the first thing I
Hmm.
remember about GTA was when you could start beating hookers. And that was
Yeah.
when everything, the game changed.
It
Be-
was like the end of like the arcade. Like
because it
again,
was
once
the
the
side
realism came
story, it
in,
wasn't the game anymore,
it was
right?
the end of like arcades, like
The
more
fantasy,
simulation,
yeah,
less arcade.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we thought people were getting too violent. Well, we were fucking wrong. So now we got kids that know every fucking gun and loadout in the world. But like this is
Mhm.
it. But that to me is really where, and I'm going to call it the first gen of racing games, because once we got into later PS2s, once we get into to bigger graphics, once we got into the Xbox 360, the game changed. That's when we started,
Mhm.
the racing wheels were more predominant. Like Mario Kart, like I said, Mario Kart, you could go and play the original Mario Kart. It's the same fucking game. Things
Yeah.
have
It's it.
changed, but it is the same premise. And those are the
Yeah.
games that I miss. Because, like I said, we went out of that arcade style, the arcade football, the arcade sports. Like wrestling was the only thing that stayed true to its arcading form because wrestling was just a clusterfuck. No one really, it was always just chaos.
Yeah.
But that's it. But I think that these when we talk about these games, your Twisted Metals, Road Rash, um, even the WWF, what they used to do with Royal Rumble and games, really paved the way. And since we got into the realism aspect of it, a lot of those games have fizzled out, right? And perfect
Mhm.
example, Twisted Metal. I played Twisted, even Cool Borders 3. How long did I play Cool Borders 3 and Tony Hawk 2
Yeah.
for? But
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah.
But these were grinding games where if you got these codes, you went you did a nose grind up top, you got things, and that's one thing that I have noticed in the games that I've played you don't really have anymore, and
Well,
it's
why have it when you could
you can
just
paywall
pull
it,
out
right?
that credit? Yeah, you pull out that credit card and you could just buy it, right?
Yeah,
Like
because
that.
before we bought skins, you used to earn that shit. Before you
You
got,
had to.
you
Yeah.
had to.
And it was a badge of honor. Again, like
But
even when
if
you're
you
saying with like
played that
need.
$100 game 4 or 5 times, like
Mhm.
that was it. That was the
Yeah.
value. But
Even when you're
now
like Need for Speed, we'd go over to each other's place and be like, "Yo, check out my car. Holy shit, how'd you unlock that?" Well, dude, I had to fucking get 100,000 fucking score in the drift thing in order to get this. And you're like, "Fuck me, I'm going to do that now because now I need to show I'm better than you." Instead of being like, "Well, how'd you get that?" Well, I paid 19.99 for it. You know what I mean? Like, so
and
like,
that's it. Like you can well like I said, I refer to it as thugs. All these thugs that talk to me about not getting a cut that didn't want to do anything, but that's it. Like you got to earn
even
your.
just in sports games, man, like I would play more sports games if it was like I had to play the game over and over again
But
to
if you
unlock
weren't playing
fucking.
hockey in the real world, would you have spent that time playing NHL games?
Oh no, probably not.
Right?
Honestly, unless it was like an arcade style game,
Yeah,
right? Because I continued on and played the realistic ones for a while. But I think like because again, I
yeah.
didn't
If we had
really.
Slapshot, you'd play it all the time.
Yeah, yeah, of course, right? But like, or like even when it comes to racing games, I'll play a racing game, but fuck you if it's simulation because I don't understand that shit at all,
Well,
right?
and
Like,
it loses its novelty. And like I said, we tend to forget that we games were to keep us. It wasn't about the realism; it was about the fantasy, right? If I
yeah,
could play football in the real world, yes, I want to be able to clothesline him, rip off his helmet, and beat him with it. Would love
yeah,
to,
yeah. I'll play a football game, but give me another NFL Blitz, and I'll play with that. Like, I'll play
right?
with you that all day long. Like,
We're
I'll do
not
it.
paying
But like,
$120 for it, but that's a 5.99 I drop on, and then you
I'd
get
play it
it.
online. Yeah, I'd play it online with somebody. But now, if I go online and I go to play Madden, whatever, the guy I'm playing against probably have spent $500 on
Yeah,
fucking cards and shit to get the best players, and I'm at a disadvantage now, right? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man.
it's a it's different. Like I said, it's you can't even play solitaire without getting 99 cent ad
Yeah.
takeaways and shit. But that's just the world we've created. But such is life, it's monetism. But like I said, Joe, this was a good episode. Joe and I
Yeah,
are
dude.
going to switch it up. I'll kind of figure it out, but we are going to do knockout rounds for the next little bit just to switch up the format.
Hmm.
So I will compile a list of either cartoons, games, Who knows? Just shit from the 90s and early 2000s, and then we'll go from there. We'll bring it into the new age because things like trying to compare Michael Jordan to LeBron James just don't work for me. Like, there are certain things, like when I see Len Dawson smoking a cigarette as a former Kansas City Chief in the middle of a Super Bowl, compared to Tom Brady having avocado ice cream, shit change. Okay, like those motherfuckers aren't spending $100,000 on personal trainers right now. But that's the kind of thing. So I want to take us back to a bit of a retro feel because I've been watching these guys and I don't want to tell you because I don't want to give you some of the shit because I wouldn't get you back. You'd be watching that show for a while. But basically, this guy has collected every video game, including your unicorn. He's got on his wall, and the name of his show is Not for Sale, where he goes and he breaks down all these games. And we're talking back from Atari, Coleco. Yeah, but I'll give you. I'll wait a bit. But I need some material, but that's it. But no, like shit like that, I think is what people want to hear. So if you guys want Joe to debate two games, put it in the comments. Let us know. But right now, we're running at that 90-minute mark. I want to thank everybody who stayed, who listened, who supports us. Again, angrycorkycustoms.ca. Me and Joe are trying to make this at least a part-time gig so we can spend more time recording, put more money into. I don't want to show you my studio. It's not pretty. That's why I got a black wall. Yeah, well, you're a fucking cunt. And so, that being said, as the producer of this podcast,
I need to be able to still afford my habit.
yeah, like the credit card debt for this show is getting encroaching. We can't do it anymore. Joe's got beats on. We thought this would fly. This was a horrible idea. No, but seriously, we want to thank everybody who has been supporting us, sharing our videos. Those of you who have subscribed. Yeah. Check Joe out on Twitch. I'm there too. I'm rarely on there. I'm usually in his chat just pissing people off. But Twitch.
Joey _shadows.
That's the one. But yeah, thanks again. This has been episode 11 of Short Legs.
We did it. We made it.
Fuck. To what now? We ran out of ideas. Now we're on a new story arc. Anyways, this is going to be One Piece. We're going to have like 800 fucking episodes that just no one cares about.
No, dude, man, just shoot the shit. That's all that matters.
That's all
whatever.
But we are going to have some special guests. I have talked, and I guess I will announce it. I have talked to my old podcast show host, the great C Note TV. He is going to be coming on every second week, and he'll be talking about the games that Joe and I don't give a fuck about, like Minecraft, Fortnite, and all that other shit. But Carrie, if you are not following him, most of my followers are, because him and I kind of came through this together. C Note _TV. He is also on Twitch, YouTube, everywhere else. But thank you guys for supporting the community. There will be a new Discord coming, which will involve this because we want to get you guys involved. But yeah, if you guys think of anything you guys want us to talk about, Joe has been holding in that pee for a while. I'm just dragging this shit out. I just like to watch.
You can kind of tell, right? I started shifting around like this.
But I would rather cause you pain. It doesn't matter if I get a UTI. That shit don't matter to me. But anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. We will be back either next week or the week after with a new episode. Thank you.